Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this event co-created by SAP and ETHRWorld to analyze a very topical topic, the great integration, people, process, and technology, along with industry experts. I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead, ETHRWorld. The entire duration of this event is 90 minutes, comprising of a masterclass, followed by a power-packed panel discussion. Masterclass is a great opportunity for you to interact and learn from an industry expert who has been leading the people function and HR transformation in a homegrown tech company. Before I call out to the speaker and introduce him to you, I will take a minute or two to set the context and your expectations from this event. Leaders today are focusing on building a winning HR tech stack comprising people, processes, and technology to address the changes and challenges highlighted in the post-COVID world of work. As we delve deeper into functions such as attracting or retaining talent, reducing costs, earning a business competitive edge, or driving HR efficiencies, digitalization has become an imperative and is leading to the deployment of the most sought after HR tech. This immersive masterclass will put a spotlight on the roadmap of how HR leaders are creating a step-by-step blueprint of adopting the right technology and aligning them with the key business outcomes and critical organizational drivers. I won't keep you waiting any longer. So now I'm going to welcome an industrious leader to deliver the masterclass. Please join me in welcoming Arun Dinkar Rao, Chief People Officer, Birlasoft. Arun has 28 years of experience within the IT, ITS, finance, and internet industries, and is widely regarded for his insights and opinions on the human resource function. Prior to Birlasoft, Arun led HR function at DXC Technology India, where he was responsible for aligning the people function to business objectives and helped drive multiple post-merger integrations. Before DXC, he was at Deloitte US Office of India. There, he led the HR function across multiple business lines, served as the Chief Learning Officer, and was instrumental in the smooth execution of key leadership development initiatives. He has also served with companies like Satyam Computers, Apple Labs Technologies in the past. Among leadership and talent enhancement circles, Arun contributes as a speaker at industry events, think tank sessions, publications, dailies, and HR forums as well. He is regularly involved in mentorship programs, providing enrichment to aspiring and mid-management individuals interested in making a career in human resource. Dear viewers, I refuse to stand in your way of plentiful learning. Thus, I will call in the masterclass speaker right away.
Thanks, Pooja, for having me here. And thanks for that introduction. And thanks, ETHR, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts in this masterclass. Fellow colleagues, I sincerely hope that the next few minutes that we share, and you get to hear my own perspectives on what I believe is extremely important for the HR fraternity. I feel you find some of these perspectives useful, and I hope there's a little bit of resonance between what I said and what you take away. Have a great session. I think the operative word here is long-term. Very, very important for organizations and the HR leadership to have a long-term view on how do they want to plan and position their digital transformation journey. It is very easy to get caught in the here and now, build tactical responses to problems which are of immediate nature and do need redressal. But the HR leadership should have that point of view where they are able to have a long-term perspective in mind. Even if there is a need to bring up something bespoke, it is important that it kind of falls into place into the long-term play that is more benefiting to the organization. I think in terms of what could be the pillars of such a long-term digital transformation journey, I would probably put out 4 or 5 of these. And of course, these are illustrative, they are not exhaustive. The first and foremost would be global reach. We all need to be cognizant that the world today is pretty much borderless. It is very, very commonplace to talk about organizations moving into newer geographies, the talent landscape changing and embracing gig workers who pretty much could come anywhere from anywhere in the globe, and teams which are hitherto kind of confined to a particular location now being spread across different locations. So therefore, global reach is one of the key things that the digital transformation strategy should kind of address. I would think that one of the second important dimension that it should address is one of the skill transformation. So any digital transformation strategy that organizations espouse and put together should have a very, very key focus on how do they capture the skill footprint, the skill DNA of the organization, and ensure that the organization remains true to that DNA. Of course, it can shift with shifting skill priorities, but the ability to capture and stay on top of that is something that the strategy should address at all points of time. We are also living in an era of the cloud, fairly open source architecture and stuff like that. But we do carry the onus of ensuring that we keep the organization compliant to all data privacy laws. So therefore, data privacy perhaps would be the third pillar that a digital transformation strategy should kind of address and keep in mind, because that will come to haunt organizations if they tend to fail on that particular dimension. Any digital transformation strategy today should address the issue of workplace collaboration. I did talk about borderless organizations. I did talk about teams that could be spread out. We already know of agile teams that could actually be working concurrently in different time zones across the globe. Therefore, a digital transformation strategy of the future would be misplaced if it does not address the concept of collaboration. Workplace collaboration, task collaboration, project collaboration, whatever it may be. And finally, any HR strategy, for that matter, any business strategy, needs to respond to that one key element of return on investment. So therefore, when HR leaders are working out their digital transformation strategy, talking about the entire transformation journey from a technology perspective, they need to keep in mind that the organization gets the most appropriate ROI, both in the short term and the long term. Therefore, to sum up, HR leaders need to have a long-term view on the issue of digital transformation strategies, and perhaps should use the 5 levers or 5 pillars while they're putting this together. These are a global reach, something that addresses skilling, should take into account issues relating to data privacy, should support collaboration, workplace collaboration, and finally, it should be absolutely true in terms of giving back ROI to the organization. As I mentioned previously, we are working in a fairly borderless world today. markets across the world are accessible to organizations. For those organizations which have an aggressive growth path, these organizations will look towards expanding the geographical outreach. So it is very, very commonplace to find organizations today looking at newer, uncharted geographies to fuel their growth aspirations. We all know that each geography, each country has a set of compliances of their own. And it's important for organizations to be aware of what the law of the land is and make sure that as part of the due diligence are able to build a fabric that will support being compliant to the local geographies. And that is where I feel a very, very robust HR technology backbone would support such organizations. So while you will have a fairly open architecture in terms of how you capture employee information, how you put together workflows that manage the employee life cycle, you have tools that will support employee engagement. You should also be able to sit on top of this backbone. Plugins, bolt-ons, tools, whatever the case may be, which will help you create those checklists that would be required for an organization to stay compliant to the needs and the laws of the local geographies. Organizations cannot afford to see this as an afterthought anymore. In my mind, one should be preemptive. One should look at compliance tools that are available for global stat compliances. There are more than a few in the marketplace. It is important to see which of those actually sit on top of your backbone. Ensure that the plugins don't become an overhead of sorts, that the tools that you're going to be using for local compliances, that they work seamlessly with what your own workflows are. But make sure that this is done proactively and you stay on top of that, because it is important that as you open up new geographies, as you set up your offices across the globe, you use the HR technology backbone to help you stay top on the compliances. I have been in the IT industry for over 2 decades. I have seen organizations make huge investments in technology. Oftentimes, organizations go for what they believe is best in class. I never doubt the intent behind those investments. But sadly, when we actually look to see how they have helped organizations, one truth emerges. That organizations always land up in a suboptimal scenario because data does not flow seamlessly. That you always tend to build overheads when one tries to marry two different platforms. It is very commonplace. I might be stereotyping, but it is very commonplace for us to throw bodies at the problem because data does not flow seamlessly. So in spite of whatever our best intentions were, we sadly end up in a compromised situation when it comes to execution. And that is where I personally believe and I espouse the cause of a single platform. A single platform where data could flow seamlessly. Therefore, making it possible for organizations to build necessary data analytics support on top of that to get the right kind of intelligence. And then go ahead and make their decisions, because time is not wasted in putting the data together. Therefore, I'm a very, very, very big advocate of having a seamless common HR backbone. You would have heard this saying quite frequently in recent times, that skill is a new currency. While it was always important for consulting organizations and professional services firms to manage their inventory well, and this inventory was primarily the people and their skill sets, it is commonplace. It is commonplace that this has never got the attention that it deserved. More often than not, in most of the companies, this was confined to a huge, heavy Excel workbook or a derivative of that. And oftentimes it would be left to the resource management or its equivalent to ensure that they ran programs to get this updated from time to time. The real challenge comes in because as an organization, as a collective, and as a collective community, we have failed to appreciate the importance of the need for currency of skills of our people. So whether it is the manager who's managing his team, whether it is the people who are part of the team, I think there is a lack of appreciation of this particular need. And perhaps our systems have been slightly convoluted, making it difficult for people to actually achieve this very, very important objective. Therefore, I personally believe that any technology solution, when we look at a future HR strategy, whatever you call it, HR digital transformation, I think it needs to have this entire skill piece at the right and center of that particular jigsaw. It is important to ensure that organizations are able to put their taxonomy in the right manner. They are able to differentiate the niche from the not so niche. They are able to identify adjacencies. They are able to map people and their levels of expertise in these areas. They should be able to define the threshold competencies at different levels and what the project demands are. And all this should ultimately go and build into learning paths. I therefore believe that skills and the skill journeys that employees need to take and organizations need to facilitate are extremely crucial for the consulting and professional services organizations, and hence should find its due position in the strategy that will drive HR process transformations. We are living in a world which is extremely dynamic, fairly uncertain, where lead time to decisions are becoming shorter and more real time. We are also expected to make more and more database decisions. Gone are the days when organizations and people would be okay with managers making their decisions based on gut feel. So how do we actually marry these two seeming contradictions? And I think that's where this entire HR digitization comes into play. I think if we get our HR transformation and digitalization strategy right, then we are in a position to actually gather more and more relevant data points in the course of an employee life cycle. We all know that there's so much of data that's being gathered today. Every transaction point is a potential source of data. But what do we take, what do we make sense of, is left to us. So therefore, if our strategy is right, if our way of gathering, organizing, and recovering data is right, then we can actually have extremely intuitive analytics engines, which today, and sorry for sounding cliched for a moment, use AI and ML to make sense of these pieces of information. I think as enablers of organizational decision making, we will make available to the managers and the leaders in the organization real-time relevant data, and would contribute a lot to this science of database decision making. If organizations need to manage this VUCA world, if they need to thrive in this VUCA world, they need to be fast in their responses, and they need to be as right as possible in terms of the responses. And I personally believe that if you are able to get them the right kind of data real time, I think they would be in that much better position to make those calls. So therefore, while it is not a silver bullet, I also think that in times to come, this will become a hygiene issue. How well are we able to capture real-time data? How well we are able to retrieve the data? And how well are we able to support real-time database decision making? Because that is the only way organizations will survive in this VUCA world. Now, we all know that organizations are investing heavily in the newer variants of ERP. It is becoming commonplace to look at products which are over the cloud for obvious reasons. Two of them that come readily to mind are price points and the ability to ensure that you are in a position to recover data at any point of time from anywhere. You cut down on your fixed costs, capital costs. So let us assume that organizations are veering more and more, other things remaining equal, towards companies which are offering a SaaS model of consumption. Now you add this entire need for a globally relevant and scalable platform. Remember, I did talk about the need for organizations to be wary of bespoke solutions. So it is important for organizations, especially organizations which are looking to grow, looking to grow into newer territories, looking to create a very high degree of user experience, which in our case, especially if you're talking about the HR piece, employee experience, which will talk then about a common look and feel across various platforms, right? And finally, I did talk about the local compliance piece. Therefore, I personally believe that those HR leaders, those organizations, which are able to look beyond today, those who are looking to create an environment where a strong platform will provide the backbone that is important for data flow across various sub-applications that each HR manager, each business manager requires day to day. Such a technology platform, when married with the SaaS kind of a model, is more likely to be consumed by today's organizations. So these today's organizations are the ones which are prepping themselves up for tomorrow. These HR leaders are people who possibly have a strategic bent of mind. These HR leaders are able to envision the workplace of tomorrow. These HR leaders possibly see the merit in investing into a platform which will provide the solution to up the impact of user experience, up the impact of flexibility, up the impact of privacy and data security, and up the entire quality of information and workflow. So I think as we look forward into the next few years, I personally believe that those organizations, those solution providers who have invested in creating platforms which help organizations in the areas that I just enumerated are likely to be chosen as partners of choice and would grow along with these companies which are positioning themselves for aggressive growth. Well, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for listening in to me, and thanks for all the attention. Once again, I sincerely hope that you are able to pick up a few of these perspectives, and these could become a part of how you look at HR transformation in your own organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun, for kickstarting this event in the most insightful manner. We will build on where you've left us and further discuss the key considerations of HR transformation, how digitalization improves agility, resilience, and governance, and how having a single platform can help the flow and mining data seamlessly, and much more. In short, in this session, we will discuss how to transform at scale, what are some of the best practices our panel has initiated, their learnings, and the way forward. Once again, dear viewers, welcome to the panel discussion, where you play an integral part by directing the course of the discussion through your comments and questions. So please let your curiosity soar as you absorb the panel's perspective, and then vent it out by asking your questions using the chat tab. Please join me in welcoming the panel. We have today with us Pratima Pinto Thomas, Head HR, Fino Payments Bank; Satish Mohapatra, VP and Head HR, Siemens India; Suresh Bethavandu, CPO, Mindtree; Mahua Chakravarti, Account Director, SAP. Welcome to this thought-provoking session. So organizations that dream of staying ahead of the curve need a full stack of talented people, digitalized processes, and cutting-edge technology to disrupt business models and remain competitive. In this session, we will discuss HR transformation at every touch point in the employee life cycle from hire to retire. As talent takes a center stage in driving innovation and resilience, which are the two pillars of a future-ready workplace, it is only imperative that the leadership pays attention in providing employee experience which is equal to customer experience, enable and empower them at every interaction with work, managers, and administrators. To that point, let's start with an industrial update on the leading trends in HR transformation from the panel here who represent different industries and sectors. Pratima, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Pooja, for having me over with this esteemed panel. Coming from a fintech that is a payments bank and the payments industry, we at Fino Payments Bank are trying, or rather attempting to do our little bit by pulling in small pieces of HR automation, where we are attempting to get our HR data to speak to the business and the business data so as to create a seamless flow of information, seamless flow of know-how for our employees when they look at business, as well as that helps us, create a platform to even gauge performances, etc. Having said that, yes, there is enough and more to be done. We are just attempting small things in bits and pieces and learning as we go on in this journey. And I also personally believe that there is no end to, saying this is the right fit or the right approach to the whole attempt that we are trying to gain. Each organization has its own journey, path to attempt these kind of integrations. We, at probably being a 5-year-old organization, may be at a certain stage where we are able to pull in and yet have the kind of agility to transit, or rather to transmission ourselves to that kind of an environment, maybe vis-a-vis certain already scaled up organizations who might find it difficult. So I could probably say this or leave with this thought that yes, each organization and each HR leader needs to sit and see what exactly is the current need of the hour, and probably think a little beyond just the current need to a few years ahead, and see what best can be absorbed, see what best can be invested in as a priority to bring in the required tech-related transformation in the HR process or the HR efforts.
Thank you, Pratima, for that opening statement. And I totally agree, since technology is so dynamic in nature, so it's not possible to say what is the right fit, what is the right approach. But I totally, understand when you say that there should be one eye on the future, because it is changing so rapidly. Let's go to Satish, who represents a different industry, and that also a legacy organization.
So thank you, Pooja, and thanks for having me here, and also good afternoon to my fellow panelists. So this question and the answer obviously would mean different to different people from different organizations, because if I may take you back to 3 years before, where digitalization and Industry 4.0, artificial intelligence is what everyone was talking about. The new normal has made things more interesting. Yeah, so many companies are reinventing themselves, or having to reinvent themselves. Some are moving from product companies to solution companies. Some are trying to bury their engineering past, like my company, which is has been a proud electrical engineering and technology company for 175 years, Siemens, and present in 190 plus countries with 375,000 people. Now we are talking about becoming a digital company. Yeah. So what is happening on the people front because of the business imperatives is, and what will happen, I'm not saying all of this has happened already. Structured pyramids are giving away to ecosystems of connected teams, and that is something that is definitely going to happen. And rather than loyalty and making people stick onto you, companies are moving on to making them relevant. Yeah. And careers, they are no longer can be outsourced to the managers. Employees are owners of their own careers. Topics like diversity and bringing different minds to the table globally are on the core when you talk about talent management. So these are the certain, most important trends in the industry front, which are forcing HR to transform themselves, and to the extent, and I'd like to cover after some time more about this topic, that HR is being renamed in various organizations. So that's all from my side as initial thoughts.
Very interesting, Satish. You brought about a very key point, that when you talk about HR transformation, it is not only digitalization, but it is also the other mindset and the cultural and the behavioral thing, like, flattening of the pyramid, collaboration with the teams, and which are also equally important. Suresh, your thoughts?
Yep. Thank you, Pooja. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I represent Mindtree, a digital software services provider. So the where we are as an industry, I think I have worked in the industry for more than 3 decades. And I think there is a broad consensus that if you want to be in this industry, I think this is the best time as a software professional. And also, if you're a HR professional, no better time than today to be part of this industry, because there is a lot that's happening. And if you step back and look at how this industry has evolved, this industry has gone through significant amount of S-curves, right? S-curves in terms of technology, S-curves in terms of delivery, S-curves in terms of geography, S-curves in terms of solutions, right? And it kept pace with the emerging needs of the customers, right? And also the geographies played a big part in that evolution over the last 3 decades or more, right? We started out with North America, then we penetrated the markets in Europe, then we went on to APAC, then we moved on to Middle East. So over a period of time, this industry has truly become global. And I was actually listening to what Arun was saying, right? I think the core tenet that I picked from Arun was that anything that you do, think global, right? So that's one theme that is definitely relevant from my point of view. But where we are, right, at this point in time, more as an industry and as HR fraternity, I think there is a opportunity and there is a point, if I may call it a inflection point, to go back to the boardroom, ask yourself, what does your organization want to accomplish? Either from a financial standpoint, from a customer standpoint, solution standpoint, market differentiation, solution differentiation. And then on the other hand, as HR professionals, is there a platform that you are creating whereby whatever you're doing as HR, whether you're doing your operations, whether you're doing digitalization, whether you're doing transformation, are you able to create a bridge between what the organizations want versus what you are trying to deliver as value? And I think there is a significant amount of conversation that is going on, especially in the context of what has happened in the last 2 years, forced by pandemic. So Pooja, very briefly, I think we are at an inflection point, at least from my industry that I represent. There is a lot that is definitely going on. But broad comment that I would make is it's a phenomenal time for all of us to do a lot more, learn more, and impact the organizational accomplishment in whichever company that we work.
Very interesting, Suresh, and I agree that, most industries are at the inflection point. And, the bridge concept is very, very important for everyone, whether you are in HR or you are in tech, or when you talk about skilling, because things are changing so rapidly. Maua, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And I really agree with my co-panelists and also what just now Suresh mentioned about building the bridges. And just to add to it, if I have to say, just to add to it, I think I must say that there are, with this pandemic and the new generation that is coming in the flow of the, in the corporate world, and at the same time, the management has an ask, the productivity, ROI, the balance sheet report, look okay, but their client centricity, all those things would be the priorities. So I think whatever HR delivers or an HR platform delivers, and I think as Pratima also mentioned, is about HR transformation delivers, it has to somewhere have a real effect on as an employee, how I get benefited, how I can grow, and then I contribute to the P&L by serving the client better, or addressing the issues or support issues better. Either I enable the revenue or I generate the revenue, but somewhere HR has to go and hit that chord. That would be my initial thoughts.
Interesting, Maua. I'll just take an audience question here, as I promised to make this session very interactive. Anirvan Mukherjee has a question here. He's asking, how do you decide on the trade-off between best in breed versus an industry standard ERP? Example, use ERP for workforce management versus a leader in its own space with a superior functionality? Any principles? Anybody who'd like to take that?
So maybe I can try first, and then Suresh could be at the second. So yes, in the last decade or so, most companies have tried to move digital in terms of workflows, in terms of self-service, in terms of learning modules, and ERP, but performance management. But the initial phase went on only, first of all, making your processes digitalized rather than integrating them. Now we have HCM, HRMS solutions which provide a unified platform, yeah, and a unified platform also bring in a unified experience, which is more important. But there will be, I mean, while we say this, there will be some pockets like, let's say, sales incentives, yeah, where there are other players, niche players in the market who we go to because the solutions today we have, which are part of the larger platforms, is not customized enough for the needs that you have. So we are moving towards a unified platform. There are players who are providing these solutions. The SuccessFactors, the Workdays of the world, but then whether everything is in place today, not yet.
Thank you, Satish. Very valid point there. Moving on, Suresh, I'd like to ask you how organization management, personnel, administration are getting a priority seat in HR transformation roadmap as we move from as they move from being a system of records to system of engagement.
Yep. So, Pooja, just to take off from where I left, to me, the system of record was something that existed several years ago. Then at that point in time, we said we need to transform. Then we said we need to move from system of record to system of engagement. Right? Then we said, right now, the theme that is doing rounds in the industry is system of engagement to system of experience. Right? And while we are speaking about system of experience, we are also speaking about systems of transformation. Right? So now the larger point that that I would make is HR getting a seat at the table to be able to influence the transformation, lead the transformation, be the change agent, be the catalyst? I think the answer is an unequivocal yes. Right? I don't think there is any dearth of space or dearth of opportunity, Pooja. The question is, I mean, it's a open point for everybody to consider. Do all the HR professionals have a point of view in terms of their ability to understand the industry context, customer context, competitor landscape, and your own organization's differentiation? It's almost like buying a car, an automotive. There are very different options that are available. Now, do you know what you want? Are you sure about your employee value proposition? Are you sure about your systems of record, right? I think Arun very eloquently spoke about the elements that you should consider while you're trying to digitalize an organizational footprint, right? So that's a core of what I heard from Arun in the earlier session, right? So I definitely believe that there is a great opportunity, which is why I said the last couple of years, right? I've been doing this for quite some time, but the kind of opportunity, the kind of significance, and the kind of expectation that the management has of the HR leadership has gone tremendously in the last couple of years, right? And I think the other point that I heard earlier, and I completely agree with that, the decision making, right? Your ability to design processes, organizational structures, right? Double click on employee value proposition, right? All of them, in my mind, when I speak with my teams, I just focus on two things. How are you keeping your lights on? Because at the end of the day, each one of us representing whichever organization that we represent, there is a BAU, business as usual, right? That's a table stake, right? That has to go on. right? It's like I open the tap, I expect the water to come. I close the tap, the water has to stop, right? It's as good as that. But at the same time, are you taking the opportunity of running BAU with whatever system that you're running, whatever process, whatever structure, whatever culture that you're running? Are you keeping an eye on tomorrow, right? And today, if I look at my CEO, who's my boss, or any of the CXOs that are my peers, I think the very clear expectation from me is that, are you thinking about tomorrow? And is there a point of view that you're able to provide to the management team? And not only are you able to give a point of view, you are also able to give the 9 yards of how you want to make the change come through. And ultimately, the goal is, are you impacting top line? Are you impacting bottom line with your inputs and your actions? And finally, are you truly able to impact both top line and bottom line? And are you able to identify those processes that will have the potential to impact the top line and bottom line? To me, my basic KPI that I take to my team is that we are in this function, in this profession, primarily to enable the top line, bottom line of the organization, and anything and everything that we do must have an impact on those elements. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for you to say that you are truly driving the transformation agenda.
Very interesting, Suresh. Digitalization is playing a key role as it replaces lengthy, time-consuming manual processes into user-friendly apps that resolves matters in a click or two. So the next question is, how have self-service mobile access workflows, organization structuring becoming an inclusive and integral part of HR transformation? Satish?
Sure, Pooja. So I think the pandemic thankfully has broken a lot of myths. Myths about measuring time. Now we are learning how to measure output rather than measuring time. And so there is a shift from a task mode to a trust mode, which organizations have no choice but to do if they have to retain and attract talent. But how do you do it? This is English. How do you translate it into ground level? So your question has 3 parts. It says self-service, mobile access and workflows, and organization structure. So I'll maybe cover the 3 parts separately in my answer and try to keep it crisp. So self-service is basically it depends upon having a good human capital management system or a HRMS system where I think the faceless HR can still do actually a better job. You need a experience certificate. Somebody gets married, wanted to change their surname. So all these things you don't. Why should you go through the bureaucracy? Why should you make another person's job less interesting to do this stuff for you? And that is exactly what the systems are enabling people to do. Managers can provide mobile phones to people. They can change cost centers, all in a self-service mode, both manager and employee. Coming to let's say workflow, it's basically empowerment. I mean, earlier rewarding someone needed 4 levels of approval. Now organizations are saying that okay, we move into a point system. Managers have their budget. Nobody asks them. Even employees can nominate peers to reward peers from other teams to reward them with points which can be encashed, at least in my company, and I'm sure in many other companies. So similarly, benefits and compensation are becoming flexi at the hands of the employee through that too. Finally, coming to okay, I mean, I should not forget about the new normal way of booking seats through mobile apps in office. Yeah, because you are working in a hybrid digital model. 2 days you work from home, 2 days you go to office. Finally, coming to the organization structure, and I was talking about it in the first part, how HR is reinventing itself in the new way. Many companies are renaming human resources as people and culture. In my company, we call it now people and organization, because you rather than only demanding a seat in the board by being a governance or a separate function, you are part of the organization. Yeah? And there, what the mobile systems and the self-service things can do is in terms of, let's say, internal job markets, where every job posted is mandatorily done, applicants don't need CVs, the internal page where you actually basically keep the telephone directory, used to keep the telephone directory and the email address of people, also has a page where you can import your LinkedIn profile and share it with your job applications in-house. And to be ready for the job, your learning platforms have become like LinkedIn's. You choose what programs you want to do. You can start and stop anytime. Yeah, the LinkedIn's and the Coursera learnings are all available in-house. So basically, it's a culture of empowerment that through the technology, human resources, or people and culture, or people and organization, whatever name you call it, are making available to people to make the experience better.
Thank you, Satish, for sharing those examples. And by touching upon talent acquisition, you've also, in a way, answered Shekhar's question. Shekhar had a question on talent acquisition. Pratima, moving to you, Satish mentioned faceless HR, and in the BFSI sector, everybody's talking about faceless banks. So I don't know what is going to stay in the premises in the office. But jokes apart, what I'd like to ask you is that, whether we call it the Great Resignation, but the fact is that today employees are leaving organizations for greener pastures. There could be a number of reasons. There is also a major, reshuffling of priorities that take place during the pandemic, and they were reassessing and rethinking what they want in life, plus digital overload, plus opportunities elsewhere. So I would like to ask you, what according to you and in your experience have been the bigger reasons for the Great Resignation? Is it data, time and pay, or learning and career opportunities?
Quite a debatable topic out there, Pooja. And I'm going to be very candid when answering this, whether you may like it or not. The whirlwind may have started with genuine talent who are looking for career opportunities and learning and purpose, in an individual's life, which probably had lost that essence in their own organization search, in the year 2020, when organizations were actually genuinely attempting to, survive, and, they were talking about sustainability, etc. Maybe in that kind of a period, organizations, some of them would have lost that personal touch to employees, etc. in terms of learning, career perspectives that needed to be shown to employees. And hence, at that point of time, I would say the reasons for exit, etc., would have been these perspectives, career and learning. However, over the last 1 year, and probably in the current and scenario today that we talk, it's definitely shifted to time, pay, and even importantly, personal purpose. The talent of today have been exposed in these last 1 or rather 2 years. They have outdone themselves in terms of open source learning, trying to do new things, attempting new things, because they've had time at their disposal, apart from the thin line that was there between work-life balance, full-time, digital, online, work from home, online meetings, etc. However, that gave them an exposure and opened up a whole world outside, where they were able to do a lot more in terms of self-learning, in terms of accessibility to various other networks, etc. And that probably has driven this whole aspect of the Great Resignation subsequently. I can say that today, organizations who have been able to showcase that sense of purpose, or rather have been able to, keep pace with the time, keep pace with pay, have been able to trail that whole Great Resignation phenomena. But organizations, like an example, a small example, many organizations are facing this challenge as we speak of even getting back employees to work in their office space. Unlike ours at Fino, we have always been in office, or rather 80% of my employees who were in field have been on the ground at the field, in the thick of the pandemic. And the head office or the back office guys have returned back to work immediately after the peak surges, and all that without any enforcement. Believe me, I must put this out. I believe that is because some organizations have been able to create that sense of purpose, create that sense of achievement, even in this time of the pandemic, when there were personal nuances which needed to be addressed, etc. And hence, if you tell me reason, yes, it did start with probably career and learning, etc. Today, it is being driven by time, pay, and my personal purpose, of what I can probably best achieve or drive for myself as of now. Hope I've answered your question.
Yes, I'll just take one audience question. Madan is asking what kind of role this integration, and we're talking about people, processes, and technology, can play in attracting new talent and preventing attrition. I think it'll be nice if you share one example from your organization as to how you've been doing it. Anybody?
I'll take a go at it, Pooja. So the people, process, technology, I spoke about experience earlier. From a Mindtree point of view, for me, the transformation into the future, I'm trying to focus on two types of elements. One is, if I'm reaching out to hundreds and thousands of candidates, right, for a potential opportunity with the organization, do I really have the ability to be able to deliver an experience at scale, right? Because we are a 37,000 people company growing pretty rapidly, part of L&T conglomerate, right? So the needs of the organization is humongous, right? So every day, hundreds of people do get evaluated, hundreds of people get onboarded, hundreds of people get offered. So the entire storyline in terms of who you are and what you are and what type of an opportunity does this organization provide the candidate with? Are you able to choreograph that in a very nice way, right? Which makes the candidate who currently has multiple opportunities to choose from, the one that Pratima was talking about, right? So today, if I look at this industry, right, this industry has gone through phases where it was completely an employer's market, right? And this industry is right now going through a situation where it's completely employees market, right? The organizations have to fine tune your policies, your approaches, your flexibility, blah, 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 according to what the workforce needs, not according to what the organization needs, right? So to that extent, right, your ability to create that experience when someone is outside the organization is critical, because today when I speak with senior candidates, right, they say, I have been approached by 4 organizations, but I chose X organization primarily because that end-to-end conversation, right? I've gone through 4 rounds of discussions, 5 rounds of discussion. I saw consistency. I saw a reasonable amount of coherence. I saw respect, right? And I saw a reasonable amount of connect culturally between what I heard versus who I am, right? That's as far as the market is concerned. More importantly, that shelf life of a candidate is short-lived. I can be a candidate for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, right? But I pick up the offer, transition into an employee. So the key question that I'm trying to double click and find an answer across the board is, are we in HR here in the business of delivering experiences to employees? Or are we here trying to deliver transactional value, operational value, right? Bring rules, regulations, frameworks, protocols, blah, blah, blah. So are you truly an enabler, or are you truly a blocker to say, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you can do this provided you adhere to these principles and blah, 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 right? So in summary, I think the biggest transformation that I see for the industry, at least that I represent, and I think this is true for pretty much everybody else, is can we transform ourselves as a HR fraternity community into thinking very, very seriously about how do we get experiences delivered? And is there a mechanism for you to measure whether that experience that you have delivered truly did make an impact to the employee at large?
Yes, experience is the key, and the outcome of experience will be long-term.
Yep.
And really help you to enhance the loyalty of the candidate. HR leaders are now going directly after top line impact and bottom line performance when they look at people transformation. And we've had, Suresh also allude to that previously. Pratima, what in your view should be the approach to unleash the potential of HR technology and the intelligent automation it brings?
I would want to probably, go to the word transformation from the word people transformation. It may be very relative to every organization. Some time ago, Suresh mentioned about, Mindtree, or rather Satish, if I'm not mistaken, mentioning about Siemens transforming many years ago. And we are once again talking about transformation even now. So transformation as a process is continuous. And when you talk about people transformation in today's day and age, I feel it's directly influenced by two things. When I look at young organization and an environment, it is influenced by opportunities and the environment created for individuals and teams. And these two aspects directly influence your top line as well as your bottom line performance. And when coming to that, as an organization, we need to gauge at every point of time the kind of investment that we want to make, that needs to be done to create such an environment. I need to choose, how do I want to set my people up, set their expectations. And that's where we need to unleash probably the technology piece, etc. Especially today's day and age where we have a variety of technology. We have to match that perspective, or rather the available technologies, to where we want to head, to where we are currently. Probably that balance needs to be played. So HR technology today, I could say, could be used to create a personalized experience for employees. Earlier, for example, I'll just probably state one or two small, very, very, very lay examples. We would, when I talk about opportunities, earlier an IJP would be just rolled out, whenever there is an opportunity that came across. The HR would get to know an opportunity and we would roll out an IJP, and people would, write into us, apply for it through the link, etc. However, what if, our integrated approach, our integrated platform could allow the HR data to speak to my business opportunity data, or rather my business data, the business opportunity data, and pick and choose from my HR data where exactly the best skill set lies, etc., to create a more personalized approach to the individual, or rather to the team, etc. And thereafter give us also as an HR team a sense of where we are, whether we have that kind of talent, whether we don't have. Earlier, our IGP would just be put out. And then if somebody felt could apply, could this thing, we waited for around a week or so to this thing, if applications would come in, some interest levels were there. And then today with technology, we, our data could speak to each other. The business data could speak to my HR data and actually find out, or rather learn from the data. Insights could be pulled out as to whether the talent gap is there prior to even that opportunity coming up. And that's how we could, this is just a very simple example that I could probably just put out. Today's HR systems or HRIS cannot be a standalone system. It definitely requires, it needs to, complete the circle. The HRIS, the business opportunity data or the business data, and thereafter comes the performance management, which flows out of it. And thereafter, once again, the performance management data speaks to the HR data. And that's how the entire integrated approach could be invested into. However, whether organizations can unleash that whole piece altogether is a question that they need to ask themselves. Where exactly are we? Where are we heading? Where do we want to go? Is a question that we need to keep asking ourselves and keep reinventing. And as we say, each day there is a new technology, there is a new provider, there is a new kind of approach that could come in. At times we tend to lose sight of where we exactly want to head to because of the variety that is there in the market. But yes, the approach, if we stand back and look at it from a holistic approach and try to see what best is my priority right now and where I'm heading, I feel we will be able to, bridge that whole gap. I'll give you an example. At Fino, I have two very distinct demography sets of, sets of employees. One set, 80% of my employees are field employees who probably do not access their meals on a regular basis. They are probably on WhatsApp, they are on bots, they are on, on various things, and they are in probably tier 5 and tier 6 villages and towns of India. I have to have a different approach for them vis-a-vis my 20% of my employees who are in regional offices or in the corporate office, who are very, tech savvy. And when I say tech savvy, I don't mean to say that the 80% is not tech savvy. They are very, very extremely tech savvy. But these employees are the head office employees are glued to the laptops and are sitting ahead of the laptops. Most of them are tech talent, etc. So the entire approach that I need to play, or the available HRIS that I have to keep abreast with, etc., has to address two distinct groups of employees. How do I bridge that gap? How do I work towards, integrating this whole thing? Is something that we visit and revisit time and again and see where and what decisions that need to be taken. That, like I said in the start, there is no one set approach. Even within organizations, there could be differentiated approaches. However, yes, we need to look at it from a very holistic this thing, but yet give the individualized experience to every employee.
Very valid points, Pratima. And, I'm reminded of one of the comments recently a leader made at one of my shows. And he said, Pooja, the problem here is that we think in India, but we operate in Bharat. So there are so many levels and so many filters here that you cannot have one straight cut, implementation that probably some of these, first world countries can manage to have. Maua, I think you're ready with your response now. So you are going to tell us about, from your side, what is that the employees achieve with HR tech?
Yes, and employees in management, you did ask me. So I think I was just building on what Suresh mentioned, that experience. So earlier it was very much simpler for employees or anybody's success is about, talent plus opportunity, but it is also now combined with experience. And, I think we spoke about the great resignation, attrition, and all of that. And in professional services, we do face. And I can see it from my side of the story, whether it in my organization or whether it's at my client's place. I can see it everywhere. And the reason is when an employee comes, they come with they get selected for a job or a role, and then they do. But if we are expecting them to stay with us, to grow with us, we also have to understand that their aspirations need to be taken care of.
And instead of they be dependent on their manager or their HR, why not give them the marketplace? Like when they want to look out for a job, I would say, I mean, for as an HR tech investment, I think that is what HR tech investment should look at. One of the key points for the employees, that as an employee, as a candidate, if I have to look for a job, I go out there in the market and I can look for a job. So similarly, why can't I do it for myself within the organization? And by that, I don't mean change of a role. By that, I mean, say, for example, today I am into sales or I'm into finance, and I feel tomorrow I can be a great HR person because maybe I did my MBA in HR. So I would look at it this way that, is there a way, and is there a marketplace where I know that yes, this is the role and which is my aspiration. Now for this role, these are the 10 skills and I need to go through this upskilling and reskilling. And of course, I just have to manage my time if I want to do a fellowship or if I want to have a mentor or a coach, depending on the kind of skills I have to develop, the kind of mentors I can look at. And that should be available to be, as an experience. I should not be required to go to anybody for that. I log into my system and I log into my phone, not even in the system. And I should be able to see that these are the 10 mentors I have, and I reach out to them. I can have coaches who can be my peers from that area, and I go through it and I learn it, and then and then when the role comes, I apply for it and I grow. So that is how things become so easy for me. I call so that's my experience. I think that would be one of the key things if we have to really have employees growing with us and staying with us. And the other side, which you asked, the second part of your question, I think you touched upon a very important point: management. Experience and all is there, it's changing, whether pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and forever. The priority of all our managements has to be, and that's the way it should be, we are looking at PNL. We are looking at the share prices to go up. That's the priority. We are looking at the productivities to go up. We are looking at the clients to be happy. But in spite of doing all of these things may still, people may still leave and go. People may still change roles. Now, when I said all this, if I have to really connect the dots, I say that as an employee, I grow. Now, when I joined, I had a skill and I had this entire thing through my growing journey. And maybe after 10 years, 5 years, 6 years, 3 years, whatever, I leave. Now, whether it is the projects that I have worked on, and it has to stay in a central repository. It is not a team. I'm not talking of a shared folder that I as a project manager has built. There has to be that collaboration tool. It has to stay so that anybody who comes in that role can leverage that. Second, even if an employee leaves or an employee stays, to address the client with the agility, the management at any point should be able to find the complete whole self model of an employee. And it can go to the extent of even rehire. Like I may go and leave it go, and you may hire me 5 years back later. So that whole self model, and this is what he or she was when he joined, and then they kept on growing. This is the skills they acquired. These are the secondary skills they acquired. Or it can be even organizations say that these are the kind of visas they have, and these are the kind of mentors they worked with. So we can also check with those mentors, or these are the kind of coaches they worked with. So I think that whole self model should be available to the management. So long story short, if I have to look at the employee, it should be the opportunity marketplace for them to stay and grow with the organization. For the management, it should be that whole self model of the employee, which should become handy for them to address to their business needs. So that would be my 2 cents.
Very interesting, Maua. And, that is the power of having the right platform, I would say. I want to just take one audience question here. It's a very interesting question. VK Sharma is asking, HR wants to bring transformation, but some other priorities of business are not allowing because of paucity of time. How do you handle it? Satish, Suresh, Pratima, anybody would like to answer that?
Yeah, maybe I can try first. See, this is a question many HR professionals in their career face as a dilemma. That I want to do something, but the business has other priorities. Now, my personal belief has been that Okay, while our role is to coach the business and on people topics, that doesn't come before we understanding what business wants. Many times reflecting on our own community, I have seen fellow HR colleagues very functionally competent miss out on, HR has always believed that we are a governance function. Yeah. Then, very few went into, are in the partnering mode really. And now we are part of the organization. You are no longer outside of it that you can have a separate avatar. So once you are inside and you talk the language of the business, the chances of this disconnect will be less to start with. And going apart from that, there will still be occasions where engagement budget or something you want to spend on developing managers or sales forces, there will be stakeholders who will say no to it. And there, your experience, your standing in the organization, and the way you can connect your purpose to a business objective will help you achieve, get a better answer. I know it's not easy, but there is no other way.
Very right, Satish. And I just want to slightly more build into this. And I want to ask you that, in any organization, if there are going to be budget cuts, is it that, the HR happens to be one of the first ones in the line, this L&D and HR. So to that point, I want to ask, how can HR consistently demonstrate the impact of HR tech investments on the business value chains, along with, of course, workforce experience? Suresh?
Yep. So, Pooja, very briefly, want to be mindful of the time. I think somewhere the underlying belief is that anytime when a HR function seeks a dollar, right, one has to go overboard in justifying the ROI. And that was a fact many, many years ago, decades ago. I think the organizations have evolved, right? I talked about it earlier. And I think the organizations truly understand what they can expect from the corporate functions, right? Corporate functions, enabling functions, whatever name you call them with, right? Finance, admin, infrastructure, IT, system, right? Legal, compliance functions, right? And so on and so forth. My belief is more about not making a case, drum up a case for seeking the dollar. My belief is you having that ability to be able to provide the architecture, right? Provide the roadmap in terms of saying this is where we are as a company and this is where we need to go, right? Magua talked about some of the points, right? She talked about shareholder value, customers being happy, employees being happy, right? Today, the question in my mind, right, that I deal with day in and day out is, are you gearing your HR organization, talent organization, in a manner where you no longer become the roadblocker for the organization to accomplish its goals, right? For example, can you hire as many people as you can, right, as required by the company? Can you retain as many people as is needed by the customers, right? Are you really making sure that the price points that you are bringing people in is in alignment with the market trends? Is your performance management working really well? Is your culture truly being demonstrated in each one of your actions? Is there a talent marketplace through which people can? Magua also touched upon the fact that people are today aspiring for various roles. When I say various roles, people are truly seeking various experiences. So are you designing your systems? Are you designing your processes in such a way that the employees' experiences, employee expectations are met broadly? And the systems that you use is only a vehicle that is going to get you to the final point. But the fact that you have implemented a system in itself does not guarantee certain outcome, right? So you have a good car, but you also need to drive the good car well for you to truly have a good, nice experience of driving from point A to point B.
Very interesting, Suresh. We are seeing newer trends in benefits, leaves, payroll, such as new leave types like bereavement, family care, and new benefits like surrogacy and adoption support, or flexi pay culture in Indian organization that is moving from monthly to bi-weekly pay. What does it take for an organization to achieve this in terms of culture, technology readiness, and what else do you think an organization must reach to be able to give those kind of flexibility to employees? Satish?
Well, my take on this topic has always been that we should not get swayed by the trends and do things just for the sake that somebody else is doing. Suresh is doing, or Pratima is doing, and hence I should do. The what's important is to give the employees the flexibility they need in these topics. All these are very important topics. With flexible compensation, flexible benefits, flexible work hours, part-time education. But then, do you? I mean, understanding your own people, culture, and the demography is very important. For example, today most of the large organizations will have who have been in the business for some time will have all the four generations: the baby boomers, the Gen X, the Gen Y, and the millennials. Yeah? Now, if I have a retirement benefit and expect a millennial to have hook onto it, it's wrong. If I have baby boomers, I should think retirement planning for them. If I have maybe for the Gen X, flexible working could be what they are looking for. Maybe it's part-time education for Gen Y, and maybe it's entrepreneurial opportunities, the growth opportunities that the millennials are looking for because they are driven by purpose. So while I look at the market, there are many companies, many players who are offering me. Somebody says you can convert your insurance scheme into two parts, reduce your coverage, and buy a bicycle in the premium, be health conscious. Well, that's fine. Many companies, many countries do it. We are doing it in the UK. The insurance premium is in the hands of the employee. You can keep certain minimum and use the balance for a gym membership or to buy a bike. Yeah. Then there is always a context. Your own organization, your people understand what they need, and then execute and understand the value it will generate for your people, and that there lies the key.
Since we have less time in hand, Mawa, I'll go with you for the last question. What, according to you, should be the top 2-3 areas that should be considered by the CXO group embarking on transformation journey?
So I think at the beginning, Arun had covered it really well, and it was touched upon all my fellow panelists as well. So the first thing, and if we are really, we are global, I mean, as an organization, as my client, I would say, whether you're global or you are just in India, it doesn't matter, but it should be global yet local and scalable. And when I say global yet local, management would not want to say, there has to be one platform, one umbrella, or one enterprise wide reporting, be it your currency in which you are reporting your employee expenses, or whether it is their salary, their other overheads, or whatever, and you may pay in different currencies, or it is even capturing the details, something like, for example, and when I say localization, I don't mean just typical first name, last name, street address, and all of that. You have to really go deep into it. Say, if you're in US and withholding form is a big thing, and you have to have those withholding form done. So global yet local, and localization this is one of the key things, because if you really want to have your system scalable. Second would be data centricity, because I think that was also touched upon by Arun and others as well, because at the end, your robust framework, because when I say HR and the organization, the combination should be like experience meets enthusiasm, So that's why you need data centricity, where you have a robust framework. No matter what happens, my data is so rock solid, and the inputs that goes to HR is not in silo. In the end, it talks to all the finance applications as well, because at the end, it has a effect on the P&L. So it should be data centricity, robust framework, seamless flow. And the third thing, which I think would be also very important, is rock solid integration capabilities. Okay, whether it is you're integrating with your CRM, whether it is your some other vendor management software, whether it is your typical financials, because at the end, it is I think Suresh mentioned about architecture. At the end, it is that entire architecture which the organization is looking at, and HR is one box in it, and it cannot be a box. It should be just a room in the entire house. So I would see that. And mobility, employee experience, of course, these things are there, but this would be the top 3 areas for me.
Pratima, your point.
Yeah, I'm going back to that point on personalizing the experience for the employees. And I wanted to give one example because of the kind of employees or the demography that we had. I yet remember what was the first thing that we had worked upon, especially at the start of the pandemic, because 80% of my employees are on field and at various, interiors of India. We actually got our teams to map the individuals to and locate the closest ESIC hospitals, in the vicinity of the employees' work area, so that the minute he would reach out to us, we were in touch with him digitally, we had certain help desk, etc. That's where we were able to provide him an instant this thing. Okay, this is, if you are in need, this is where you reach out. We had a lot of our employees who were stuck up in migrant kind of camps, etc. They were traversing, and they were saying how we reached out to them during that personal need of theirs, actually influenced, or rather gave them that confidence in the organization, gave the mid-level leaders the kind of confidence that yes, HR could reach out. Whether I did see one question in the Q&A box, high tech or high touch point perspective. While we tried to reach out to them digitally, we laid out all our touch points with us that you can reach out to us. However, we saw to it that high touch point also was present, and we balanced it. We used technology out there to a certain extent to help and reach out to our employees in the time of their need and actual need. When the whole issue was happening, we happened to call up every employee, every 3,800 number of our employees, contractuals, payroll, non-payroll employees during that pandemic, to see if in case they had they were comfortable and they were being able to thrive and survive through the whole pandemic time. So that is where I say personalized approach, use of technology to create that kind of environment, not only obviously in times of dire need, but yes, even in our daily this thing. Right now we are trying on something like a daily moodometer for our employees, trying to see how else we could try to touch base with them and stay abreast with their moods.
Yes, thank you, Pratima. But what a wonderful example to share, and such a nice ending to this 90 minutes of learning. And we end with the fact that whatever we do, however we transform, care is critical and sits at the center of whatever HR does in the workplace. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope you found this session interesting and insightful. Thank you everyone from ETHRWorld and SAP to have joined us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.